Hello, everybody. My name is Craig Bennett, and today I am going to get into a video on flight following. Now, as far as things goes, in bigger airports, you can request some type of flight following on ground. In the real world, you can definitely do that. But it should be noted that when it comes to flight following, there is some things it can do, some things it can't do. One of the main advantages to flight following in the real world versus in game of Microsoft Flight Simulator is basically they know exactly where you are. This is a major advantage, so if your plane goes down, they at least have some freaking idea where you are. But when it comes to things, you in the game, there's some advantage to it. I have not seen it yet warn me about storm systems. I have not seen it warn me about how to get around Class B, but I haven't really flown around too many Class Bs. But with that, in the real world, it does advise you around these type of things. So let's go ahead and request a flight following and show you how it works in game.
Cherry Point approach Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra is type Cessna 152 1 miles west of Kilo Mike Romeo Hotel. Request flight following.
Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra Cherry Point approach. Squawk 1574.
So as we see here, we got a squawk code, and basically that goes into our transponder. So if we take a look down here, we can say,
Cessna X-Ray Golf Sierra, please acknowledge.
15 whatever. In fact, we're just gonna let it do its thing.
Squawk 1574 Cessna X-Ray Golf Sierra.
Cessna X-Ray Golf Sierra radar contact 2 miles northwest of Kilo Mike Romeo Hotel, 300 feet. Altimeter 29.902.
And what that does is it basically lets us put a thing in transponder so that we know that we're being watched.
Copy Cessna X-Ray Golf Sierra.
And that message I gave us was letting us know that we're being watched, how far away from the thing we are. But the important thing I find is this altimeter 2902. Basically, if you go to your altimeter and switch it to 292 or whatever they give you, then it should give you the correct altitude that you currently are at. That is one of the biggest advantages I find within the game itself, is as you switch locations, you will go and find that it gives you that, so you can easily make corrections, because you could easily be 1,000 feet above or 1,000 feet below than where you really think you are otherwise. Now, in the real world, what did they do? So flight following, it's not a approval to go into airspace. And same thing with the game, it's not approval to go into airspace. In the game, obviously, you can do whatever you really want to do, but in the real world, just because you got flight following, you need to go out of your way and just, if we're going into, like, say, Class D airspace, you need to call up the tower for Class D and let them know that you're going into their airspace, or and that way they give you permissions and all that stuff, or you can do whatever they need to do. So if they need you to hold or whatever, you can do that without whacking someone. That's fairly important to note, because flight following simply does not give permission to go into these areas. And also in the real world, what happens when it comes to flight following is you're supposed to end flight following when you're about to land. Obviously, you can end flight following at any point. In the game, it'll just cancel it by itself and move on from there. But the real world, a lot of times what they will do is they'll ask if you got the airport and visual sights, yes, no, and you say yes, you can cancel it. If not, then they'll recommend that you stay with the flight following. So there's some differences there. In the real world, if you're like going around like a certain airport or whatever that's very busy, they might tell you to do something to stay away from the other planes, because they're watching all the planes and they can easily guide you around certain obstacles. So it's highly useful, but it should be noted that it's like a volunteer thing. Basically, in between when they're doing other things, they can deal with the flight following, and that's the major reason why it's not a permission to go into certain airports, because simply that they might not have the time to set it up, and I can guarantee you that will be the case for the most part. Now, as far as that goes, for in-game and also real world, when you request flight following, you can go
Cherry
ahead
Point
and
approach,
cancel.
Cessna X-Ray Golf Sierra cancel flight following.
Cessna X-Ray Golf Sierra Cherry Point approach. Cancellation received. Squawk ONE200. Frequency change approved.
And we can request it again.
Cherry Point approach Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra is type Cessna 152 1 miles northeast of Kilo Mike Romeo Hotel. Request flight following.
Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra Cherry Point approach. Squawk 4164.
And as you hear, it gives us a different squawk number. Crap, I actually took off for a second. You basically can deal with the flight following as such in the game, and it will help you get from one area to another. To a certain point, it'll help you with the altitude thing, but the main thing with it is it does not have all the functionality as it would in the real world, whereas the real world, you get alerts about weather conditions ahead and stuff like that. And I don't think that's in the game at all. I've never have seen it, which it should definitely alerted me a number of times. And then on top of that, I've honestly never have seen it do certain things, like advise me how to get around busy airports and stuff like that. But again, I don't really fly around too many Class Bs. So that's more than less what flight following is. I mean, in the real world, I highly recommend if you're doing anything other than flying around the pole, take off from your home base and land at the home base, just flying around the pole. If you're doing anything other than that, I highly recommend actually getting a flight following. When you're flying in the real world, you'll know how to do that. But in game, it's useful sometimes. It's useful really when you're basically going and just trying to get the altitude stuff. That's really more than less when I use it, because I don't really see too many other times, if any other time, that I find it actually useful other than just habit. But anyways, as far as that goes, if you got any questions, anything else, then feel free to leave that in the comment section. Leave a like, subscribe, share, and I will see you next video. Hope you have a great day.